Automobile suspension system. Springs plays a vital role in the suspension of the vehicles. When you are driving and you are not feeling the bump in the road is because of the spring force acting on the suspension system. Helical spring is another type of spring used in the suspension. It is used in conventional rigid axle suspension, as they can easily aid in restricted space. Torsion bar spring is a simple rod acting under the torsion force, which is responsible for the shear stress most oftenly used to provide the necessary force for the independent suspension. Valve spring is a type of coil spring that used to provide sufficient force to the engine at each cycle, and to maintain the internal combustion and the speed range of the engine. If the required amount of pressure is not maintained causes sudden failure in the engine. The valve spring also helps to maintain the pressure properly by generating the required amount of force. Electronic appliances. Most of us depends on the electronic devices in our day-to-day life. The electronic devices like microwave, refrigerator, tape recorder are uses springs in wide range. These are provided with a door to open and close. The latch of the door is provided with a spring which has the tension acting downwards that create the spring force to keep the latch to work properly. Household material. Do you know without spring you cannot sit and sleep comfortably? Yes, it is because almost all daily needs materials are made up springs. You cannot sit comfortably in the furniture if the springs are not invented yet. Your furniture like chair, sofa, mattresses have made of several types of springs which makes you to feel comfortable by stretching in the opposite direction of the body weight. When you sits on the chair the spring mechanical exerts a force to compress the cushion, then it restores its original position. Other than the furniture the household materials such as clock, wristwatch, lighter, light switches also provided with the spring which is exerted by compression or stretching force under the influence of stored mechanical energy by the spring. Computer keys. We know how essential is a computer. The components computer from keyboard to storage system to printers, even battery of wireless mouse uses spring force to perform their action. When you hit on the keyboard of the computer the action of the keys are due to the force acting on the buckling spring. It is placed atop of the keys which produces acoustic sound and tactile of the keyboard. Keys requires certain amount of pressure for the movement. Based on the resistance offered by the spring, a force is developed to bottom out the keys. Lawn mower. You must have seen the lawn mower and sprinklers in backyard or in garden. These works on the mechanism of spring force. There are several sets of springs involved in the lawn mower for the efficient functioning. When the front drive wheel is at rest the springs generates the required force, and allows the backward drive wheel to move. Springs used in lawn mowers are ratchet returning spring, governor spring and idler spring. Sprinklers. After making the garden neat with lawn mower, you wish to make the plants in the garden to look green and lively. For this you are going to use sprinklers which waters the garden efficiently. These sprinklers are also established with the spring force. Sprinklers are attached with the swing head which creates tension on the spring which generates the force, and makes the swing head to rotate in all direction. Children, as toys. As we have already discussed about use of spring force in various fields. These are very useful in the production of toys for the children. The springs are used in toys as far back as 16th century. Before the invention of video games, Jack in Box was the most popular toy which consists of spring pushed down in the box. It is attached to a catch fixed to the lid. When the catch is released, under the influence of force of spring makes the lid to open. If you have ever attended any fair or exhibition, you would have ride on the toy horse or a toy car. These toy animals or cars are provided with a large metallic spring which is attached to the structure. Due to the influence of mechanical energy stored in the spring develops the force to compress and results in the movement of the toys. Trampolines. We are familiar with the trampolines, which makes us to bounce when we jump on it. Spring force is the main term involved in the bouncing process. The upward momentum on the trampoline can be achieved by the elastic fabric combined with several springs. When a person jumps in the trampoline, the body weight of the person comes down and make the springs to stretch. Springs tries to come back to its original form with certain force causes the person to bounce back to upward direction. The constant jump over the trampoline results strain in spring force. Train bogie. The very essential components that required for the safe railway operation is the springs. These springs are essential for train to move smoothly and straight as well as the curved track, and also it is important for the maintenance of the suspension. Spring force reduces the vibration and prevents the derailment. Firearm. The force required to trigger the bullet in the gun uses the spring force. When the trigger is released, the potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, and the spring force helps the trigger to retain its original position. Spring pendulum. You have been aware of the pendulum in the laboratory. When a bob or an object of certain mass is attached to the spring, it is the spring pendulum. When the bob is pulled down due to gravitational force, the spring exerts the force in the opposite direction, which causes the pendulum to swing up and down. Pogo stick. It is jumping device used for jumping in the standing position, which are aided with springs. The springs makes a bridge between the two ends of the pole, and is extended below the foot pads. The person places the feet on the foot pads and jumps over upward or downward by bending knees. The jumping motion causes the spring to compress and loses potential energy by generating the kinetic energy. Gym tools. Springs play an essential part in the fitness. It is mainly used in the gym equipment to safeguard the tools during the workout. Springs are essential to create resistance. When you pull the weights aided with springs, the body force acts in the downward direction, and the springs which are stretched uses all the forces that stored to compress. The two forces acting in the opposite direction, which makes the body to exert more and more force. By this way, spring force is acting in the gym tools. Bungee cords. You are familiar with the bungee jumping. The cord used in the bungee jumping uses the spring. When the jumper jumps, he moves towards the ground due to gravity. The weight of the jumper makes the cord to stretch. As the cord stretches, springs exerts force in upward direction, which is acting opposite to the jumper. This spring force slows down the acceleration of the jumper and then to rest. Then slowly the cord spring regains the original form. The bungee cord spring prevents the jumper to stop suddenly when he reaches the end point of the cord. If he suddenly stops, he might have seriously injured. Apart from the above examples, certain kind of ballpoint pen, syringes, light switch, rotating table fan, and certain medical instruments such as MRI machine, X-ray machine, pill dispensers, diagnosis, and monitoring devices are designed with the mechanism of spring force. Please visit our website lambdageeks.com for more articles on technology, engineering, mathematics, and various other domains. Scientific calculator and many more other tools.